The origin of God is the logical continuation of the origin of species, both in a musical sense as well as from a lyrical perspective. The lyrics are based on Richard Dawkins' book, The Blind Watchmaker. And many people think, how can beauty and complexity be the end results of a completely haphazard process? You know, that's hard to understand. But that's a misconception. Darwin never said that evolution was a haphazard process. Not at all. There's two mechanisms in evolution. The first one is called mutation, and that's a haphazard process. That's something that just happens. You know, it's like sudden, unforeseen changes in the genetic material. But the second process, natural selection, is not haphazard at all. That's a very purposive process. And that's the thing that a lot of people who don't really want to understand the theory of evolution usually ignore. Dawkins understands and respects the awe that people feel in view of the complexity and the beauty of life, you know. And also the seemingly natural desire to explain all that by the assumption of a creator. But at the same time, one of his main arguments that is kind of like recurring throughout all his writings is that this very assumption of a creator doesn't really get us any inch closer to explaining the origins of complexity or beauty. And that's the main theme of this song, The Origin of God. The lyrics go, "A prime mover only shifts the problem. If every complex structure needed an architect, then this prime mover, this architect, would need to be even more complex than anything he created." Think about that. It's an aphorism. It's an endless regression. You know, the assumption of a creator doesn't really help us understand complexity or beauty or any of the things that religion is supposed to offer an explanation for, where natural science can't offer an explanation. And I agree that there are a lot of things that natural science has no explanations for now, today, 2010. I really strongly believe that it's only a matter of time until we will be able to find rational explanations for almost all the things that we can't explain today. But even if not, you know, that doesn't make a difference. As a matter of fact, religion doesn't really get us any closer to explaining these things or understanding these things, because it's always, it's still the question remains, if we assume God as an explanation for creating these things that we don't understand, then who made God? And where does his complexity come from? You know, from out of nowhere? That's just as hard to understand as how the human eye can be the end result of a process of evolution that begins with a simple eye of the worm. You know, if creationists find that hard to understand, how the eye of the worm can evolve to the massively complex organ that is the human eye, then I find it very hard to understand how God shall just have been there or come into this world from out of nowhere and created everything else, you know, because God must be an immensely complex entity by himself. So that's the theme of that song, and I appreciate Dawkins for the same reasons that I appreciate Darwin for. Dawkins is the charismatic and passionate spearhead of modern atheism, and I think we need people like Richard Dawkins to help humanity complete the process of enlightenment. Kant defined enlightenment as the how would you say that in English? As man's egress from his self-inflicted immaturity. Der Ausgang des Menschen aus seiner selbstverschuldeten Unmündigkeit in German. And I believe that until we completely rid ourselves of the burden of religion, this process of enlightenment will not be completed. And Kant would certainly disagree with that, but fuck him, you know, he's dead anyway. So that's that song, and musically it is like I said, the continuation of The Origin of Species. Apparently both songs share the same main riff, the same first riff actually, And the second riff is also kind of the same. It's like it's a slightly different rhythmical pattern in The Origin of God, but it's essentially the same chords. And then towards the end of the song, the guitars just thin out. There's like this massive like wall of guitars. I think it's like 9 tracks or something, and it thins out more and more towards the end when there's just one single guitar line standing there. And at the same time, while the guitars thin out, the brass section comes in, first starting with a few trombones in the back, and then towards the end there's like a massive choir of trombones, and then two lead saxophones. And that was actually something we added fairly last minute in the recording process. It was only meant to be trombones in the beginning, but we had the sax player who recorded baritone sax for the midsection of The Origin of Species, and I was just amazed by the sound of his baritone sax. It's an evil instrument. It's just so bassy and low, and so we wanted to use it a little more, and we had this outro part there for The Origin of God, and we just decided to just give it a go and let him try out a few things, and he basically improvised, and it was getting better and better, and I think we recorded like 40 takes or something like that. It was crazy. We spent the whole night recording takes, and then cut it all together in a way that made sense and sounded good. And in the end, it's this saxophone battle. It's like 2 lead saxophones that are battling each other. I think it's really cool. And yeah, in the end, it's just trombones then. They're kind of lingering when all the other instruments have ceased. And that's the end of the record, the end of Heliocentric. But there's another one coming, so stay tuned.